Great. All right. Good morning, everybody. Here we are with Borderlore Live on Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. Tucson time. And my name is Kimi Eisele, and I am here with Tanisha Tucker. And at the moment, I've got Kate Jewett-Williams, who is our tech person, and I just wanted to introduce her before she goes away, and just to thank her and acknowledge her for her tech support for this hour and everything leading up to it. And as you can also see, we have Asl Interpretation, and this is Maggie, and she is interpreting today for us. So we're really excited to be here, and we'll just go ahead and get started. I've got just a few announcements before we start talking with Tanisha, and that is just to welcome you to this series that we've been doing of virtual chats. We've got another one coming up next Wednesday at 7 p.m. with Keith Johnson, who is a percussionist, and then the following Wednesday with Jose Soto, who is a Mexican baile folklorista dancer. So we're really thrilled to be bringing you these incredible tradition bearers and artists to the screen. So here we are this morning with Tanisha Tucker, and Tanisha and her late mother, Stella Tucker, received an SFA Master-Apprentice Artist Award 2 years ago. And Tanisha is carrying on the tradition of the annual bahidaj, the saguaro fruit harvest. So we're going to talk today about that practice. Hi, Tanisha.
Hi, Kimi.
So happy to have you here.
Aw, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Good. So we know that, you know, in a couple weeks or maybe less, you will be at this time of day, maybe even finishing up the morning fruit harvest. By this hour, it starts to get hot.
Yes.
But let's just go back in time, and why don't you start? So before we start the interview, I just want to remind everybody that if we will have time for questions. If you have a question during the interview, that's fine too. You can raise your hand. You can also type a message in the Q&A, and I will try to get to those as we go. So if there's something that you want to ask that's relevant to what we're speaking about, you can do that, and I'll try to get it so that we can insert it into the conversation. Otherwise, we will have time at the end for that. So thanks. So let's just go back to, let's start maybe with your childhood and tell us a little bit about your memories of the harvest and growing up.
Oh, yeah. Well, I started going out there. I remember first time was probably around 7 years old, and I went out with my mom, and she was ready to go help my grandma Juana pick, and that was the first time of me ever going and seeing that camp there that's located on Saguaro National Monument West. And you know, I went, and I was too little to go pick, but my mom said, you know, stay here with grandma Juana and you know, help her around the camp. And of course I was sad. I started crying because I wanted to go with her, but you know, she walked off and went to go pick, so I ended up staying around and helping my grandma Juana, and she was, you know, making baskets and then preparing. I kind of remember her preparing some of the fiber and things like that. So it was really nice to sit with her. And by the time, you know, my mom came back, of course I stopped crying. And she came back and she had her fruit. And you know, then I remember going back after that years, you know, almost every year, and helping her, and then starting to also go out with my mom and pick. And you know, she taught me, you know what to do when you first go out there, you know, when you first start to pick, your blessing, and also, you know, about the saguaros and how much, you know, they mean to us, and you know, that we do as people look at them as relatives, you know, they're our family. And especially because you see them so grouped up, you know, they're like, look like a family together, a mom, a dad, and kids, or, you know, multiples, or sometimes just a single one. And you know, it was nice to be out there in the desert and then tasting the fruit and, you know, looking at it and seeing all the seeds, and it's just, you know, reminded me of, oh, those look like, you know, big strawberries, and they were just so nice and pretty, and the colors, and, you know, all those things just really stuck with me. And then also going through the whole harvest, you know, slowly staying there one night, then to gradually, you know, staying there a weekend maybe, and then, you know, when my grandma Juana was no longer able to harvest, we took over, and then it was me and my mom staying out there almost the whole month, and having all the groups come out. That's when the kids started to join, and there was a lot of people. There was a lot of different families there. Some of the older lady who stayed across the way, I remember walking to go see her at her camp, and her name was Maria, and her husband was there. I can't remember his name, but yeah. And there was a lot of Ramadas out there. And, you know, of course, over time, slowly the families stopped coming out, and some of the elders just passed away. But, you know, it was just an experience to be out there, and then all the smells and hearing everything at night, and, you know, the different sleepovers we had. So it was quite an experience. I keep those memories very close.
Beautiful. So for those of us who live in the Sonoran Desert, we know the saguaro. We've met them, and we've probably spent time with them. For those who don't live in the region, the saguaro is one of the biggest columnar cacti in the region. And in this time of year, what happens is starting in March or April, they'll start to bloom, and then May and June into July sometimes, they will fruit. And so we're gearing up now for the annual harvest. So do you want to talk about that tradition and that practice, Tanisha, of, you know, this time of year, and what is it that happens? And, you know, I'll let you talk a little bit about that, and then maybe we can show some photographs too.
Okay. Yeah, this time of year for us, signifies the new year. Before we all had the calendar we now go by, we use the harvest to symbolize the start of the new year, which also brought on all the other planting and harvesting times. But you know, with our creation stories, with our songs, you know, they all are around the saguaro. And like I was saying, the saguaro is considered one of our relatives, so we treat them, of course, with lots of respect, and celebrate them and honor them. So that is in itself, you know, brings on this beautiful harvest, which after the harvest, you know, we go through and have the wine ceremonies, and that's when we want to bring on the rain. So that's when all the singers, you know, they're out singing for the rain, which they're singing through the whole process, even the start of the harvest. And the rain also helps because it's a cycle. It will bring on more saguaros, more fruit for next year, and also help with harvesting throughout the rest of the year. And of course, being here in the desert, you know, everything needs water, and these plants are very good at surviving. But yes, they do, you know, those ceremonies help. And us continuing to pick, you know, I feel like it continues to help bring on more fruit, help them know that, hey, we're still here, we still celebrate you every year. And you know, we're thankful for, you know, the fruit that you provide and the substance. And, you know, it's almost like a superfood, because out of all the foods out there, it has the most amount of sugar, and it will sustain you, you know, and that's something that you can keep for the whole year and have it for next year until you're ready to pick again.
So I know that there are several stages of that harvest or that processing. And I think when I move to the photographs, it'll be a little clearer. But so there's the fruit, like you said, that's like strawberry, and that is used to make syrup and wine. And then there's also a dried fruit that comes from that. Do you want to talk a little bit about those various I guess, products that come?
Yeah. So the of course the beginning stage is of course the flour, and that flour dries up and turns into the bottom piece of that flour turns into the fruit. That starts to get larger and larger, and the flour that was once there dries up. Excuse me. You can see it on the saguaro, those little tiny dried up they're like the blossoms that are on there. So those start to almost get smaller as the fruit gets larger. And then that's when you start to see the little tips, top part of the fruit turning red, and it'll start to get like, you know, a deeper, prettier, more redder kind of magenta colored. And then they start to, if you don't pick them, they will start to pop open, and you'll see all the fruit out, you know, the animals will be near that eating. And as it opens up, it dries up, and it becomes what we call June, which is the dried fruit. And it's pretty much just losing all its water, and it's dehydrating as it's on the saguaro. Sometimes they stay on the saguaro, sometimes you find them gathered around the saguaro down at the base, but that's the process it goes through. And we pick it at every stage. So the only stage we don't pick it at is when of course it's still green and it hasn't gotten to its full blossom or full maturity. So that red stage it's, you know, you're gathering that, you open those fruit and you pick out the fruit and put that in your bucket. Traditionally what we've been taught is you leave those pods next to the saguaro, leave them face up, you know, like little hands asking, you know, the creator to bring more rain for you. Also, it's nice to not carry all those pods back with you, because they tend to get a little bit heavier and they fill up space. But it's nice to, when you get back, then you have this, you know, huge bucket of fruit. Usually what I like to do, and my mom's done too, is we gather the fruit and the more wet fruit in the buckets, and then sometimes take a small plastic bag or a separate bag to gather the June, because those can actually dry and continue to keep preserved as a whole. So then you won't have to process them. You can even save those and eat those for later. But yeah, that's the stages of them.
Great. So I'm going to share my screen, and I think that'll help folks see what we're talking about. And so, Tanisha, you should feel free to narrate some of what I'm showing here.
Yeah, sure.
See if I can figure this out. There we go.
So that's that at the, yeah, that's when they're super ready to go. So the red ones are all ready. The green ones you can see in between they're almost there. So I wouldn't pick like the greener ones, just because they're not open and they're not really showing any signs of them being ready by having any redness to them.
Yeah, I'll say that just really quickly, these photographs are, you can see the logo on there. These are all taken by Kathleen Dreyer. In 2016, we did a workshop, a couple workshops out at the camp. And so these are photographs from that time. And so you'll see groups of people standing around learning from Tanisha and her mom, Stella. Did you want to say, sorry, I'll go back to that.
Oh, no, you keep going, because that's
these are a little bit, these aren't really in order. So people will just sort of get an impressionistic feel of it, but you can chime in.
Yes, and that's the more drier fruit. So you can see it's no longer red on the outside. It actually darkens up the pod itself, and the fruit almost becomes very sticky on the pod. So you can tell it doesn't have much water to it. It's lost all its water, but it has condensed down to very sweet, almost like a fruit roll-up kind of consistency. I call it that because it's very it's sticky and it's, you know, chewy. And that's one of the pods. So that's a drier pod. So it's probably more of the June that we pick.
Will you talk about that, that particular offering that happens with the first pick of the season, when you pick your first fruit and then you open it, and what you do with that peel?
Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. You put the peel close to the saguaro and you leave it like that where it's face up, and it's pretty much like little hands just saying, "Hey, can you give me some rain?" You know, like the little hands asking, telling creator, bring rain for us for next season. And also just to say thank you to the saguaro, you know, thank you for your fruit. I will take that and use that and eat that. And yeah, that's what I like to do. Oh yeah, that was a nice loaded one. So everything there, yep, was nice. Oh, and there's our picking poles.
I love this action. There it is coming off.
Yeah. So nice when they work just like that. Oh, and there's my mom and Kimi. And that's the process of cleaning the fruit. So we add water into that fruit right before we cook it. So it kind of, you go through it, you mush it up, get all the big chunks um, mushed up, and then you also go through and make sure there's no pods and there's no other, you know, debris in there that needs to come out. Sometimes you can find rocks in there and, you know, other vegetation in there. So you just want to go in there and clean that all out, make sure it's all mixed in well, and that's yeah, cleaning it right before it goes on to the fire. And there we are, teaching the class. And that's my cousin Maria next to me also, who is also helping me a lot during the harvesting. So she's one of our other harvesters out there, one of the family. So that's all our
there you can get a
poles.
sense of the camp and the tools.
Mm-hmm. And the tools out there. So those what we used to pick them is actually made out of saguaro ribs, and the cross section is the creosote, out of the creosote wood, because that's a lot stronger. But of course saguaro ribs are super tall, so their ribs are very long, and that's perfect for using those together. Sometimes we'll piece 2 of them, sometimes 3 of them together with baling wire, and that's tall enough to reach the top of the saguaros. Yes, or you can use the ladder.
I think maybe the ladder was for the camera, but
I think so.
Not to get fruit.
We do not take a ladder out there to gather fruit, so that's too easy. So there it is. So it looks all so pretty. That's what it reminds me of, a big strawberry, because they just come out so perfect like that. And that's the dried up bloom. So that can also be used as a knife. As you see, that little sharp edge over there is used to cut the pod. So you really don't even, it's already comes with its own tools ready to go. And yeah, you don't need much. And that's, okay, so that's a punch. I forgot to write that in. Well, in Autumn, it's called Iawatak. And it's just like a punch. Usually you start the beginning of, you know, you kind of give punch, and, you know, it's like that's your Happy New Year drink. And then, you know, that's to another starting of the harvest. But it's very sweet, and you get some seeds in there. But yeah, so it's a very, very nice, refreshing drink. And there's all the fruit. So a lot of rocks get in there, a lot of stickers, but during the cooking process, a lot of that falls to the bottom. So you'll see that, you know, all these rocks in there, they will all be strained out. They'll all fall to the bottom, and they also get strained out because there's 2 straining processes with cooking.
I feel like I remember your mom saying so many times to people, because everybody's really worried about the rocks. And
Yeah.
so I feel like she would say over and over, now don't worry about the rocks or the bugs, just bring it all back.
Yes, exactly. It's, don't worry about it. You know, it'll all clean off, it'll all boil off, it'll all fall to the bottom. So yeah. And that's our Ramada. That's our, it's a Wato. So we have our, everybody gathers under there. It's a pretty large structure, so it's enough to fit, oh goodness, maybe 30, 40 people under there. And underneath the covered one, that's our sleeping quarters. Mm-hmm.
And you said that you just built a new roof.
Yeah, so that whole section right there is completely redone. So we took that out, we moved some of those railroad ties, and yeah, it's a really nice open roof, and I can't wait. I'm gonna put some saguaro ribs and do like some art design underneath. And
Nice.
yeah, the guys worked hard. They got everything all sound, and it looks really good. So really happy about that. And that's our cooking area. So that's where we cook our syrup. Of course, everything's over wood fire, mesquite. And yeah, that process takes, oof, goodness, probably about 5 hours usually to cook all that fruit. If you have a smaller batch, it doesn't take as long, but with those large batches, sometimes 3 gallons of fresh fruit, 4 gallons, yeah, that will take about 4 to 5 hours with cooking. Yes, and that's the first strain. So that's the strain that gets the pulp and the seeds out from the liquid. And that will we'll dry those patties. I call them patties out, but you'll dry that out, and that that can be used later for your jams. So what you would do is once it's to a dry state where it's just sticky, you gather those pads, and then you break them up, and then you start rubbing them in between your hands. And what you'll notice is the seeds will fall out, and what you have left is just the fiber. And I actually have some fiber here, if you can see it. So that's the fiber that comes out after it's dried. And this is minus a lot of the seeds. There's still some seeds in there, but not that much. So as you can see, so that gets separated, and then all the seeds fall out. So here's the other container, and that's got more seeds in there. But those are the two that separation helps, because this fiber can get added back into the syrup as it's cooking, and it will thicken the syrup, and then it'll turn it into a jam.
I wanted to point out on that last photo that you were pressing the wet fruit into a screen, but I don't know if folks could notice that that screen was, you know, a screen that was then sort of hand sewn or hand wired to some wood.
To some saguaro ribs. Yes, that's our screen we use, which it's nice because it's it's pretty big and long enough for it to take all the fiber, and you can strain quite a bit with that.
And I remember a conversation we had about some of those tools, and I want to ask you a little bit more about those. But I remember saying, you know, so these tools are the tools that these look like some of the original pots and pans and screens, and you know, we had to laugh about it because you said, yeah, well, they all work, so why would we upgrade?
Yeah, for right now they're still, you know, they're still going. So yeah, that's an older one. Actually, we that one unfortunately was stolen from the camp, so we lost that one, but I made another one just because I like those types of strainers, how they operate. Of course, we have some newer strainers too that I use for the cloth, but yeah, and some of the pots going, as long as they still keep cooking and they clean up well, I keep using them.
Yeah, it's just it's a testament to, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? It's
exactly.
Just these tools, they work, and keep using them.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I have here an example of the picking tool.
Oh yeah.
And this was a miniature one that we used for a performance, but that you made with all the parts, the exact parts of the saguaro rib, and this is the creosote.
That's the creosote and some baling wire. And yeah, and those are usually just wired together in a way that, you know, of course that creosote doesn't move, so you kind of make your little grooves in the wood so it actually just stays pretty put. And that will be used, that's the section that goes on the top, so that when you're pulling those fruit down, you can kind of situate them behind the fruit and just pull them down, and that helps to yeah, with gathering fruit. And they're very light, because the saguaro ribs are very light.
She makes it sound easy, but there's definitely a skill perfected over many, many decades. So a lot of the people in that workshop that in the photos that you saw, you know, had a lot of reverence for the work. Even just, you know, holding your hands up and your head up, and you know, it's taxing. It's
Yeah.
work.
Oh yeah, it is. It is. So it's good to, you know, you get better at it and then you're quicker and then you can go through and, you know, it becomes just second nature after a while. But yeah, it takes a while to balance, to, you know, get the hold on to the pole and then get it to the saguaro fruit and then to knock them down and not hit yourself in the head.
And so, Tanisha, that camp is really significant to your family, and you know, it's located now in Saguaro National Park West. Do you want to talk a little bit about the history of that camp, and you know, the way it's remained in your family?
Yeah, so that area, of course, it predates the monument. So not only did my family go out there, a lot of other families went in that area, and also all through, you know, all through Tucson. But that was a huge cluster of saguaros, and they're, you know, very dense out there. So, you know, my grandmother picked a camp, and it wasn't at that exact location. It was actually across the road, and she finally moved over to the other side of the road, and you know, they were having trouble because they had a dirt road, you know, out there, and at that time she was cooking her syrup, and she, you know, all the dust and stuff was getting into her syrup, so she kind of moved away from that area. And you know, when that area came to be a monument, you know, she went out there ready to harvest, and no, she couldn't harvest because being a national monument, you can't gather, harvest, camp in that area, you know, without having permission or a permit. So, you know, with her friends from Desert Museum and other members around the area, I believe they all wrote letters and helped petition to get her, to keep her out there, because of course this is a very important tradition, you know, and she wanted to stay in that area. It's, you know, it's a beautiful area. It's a lot of saguaros. She has a connection with that area. So they were able to get that passed, and it was through Udall at the time, who said, yeah, I'll grant that permission and you can continue to harvest out there. It's very important. So ever since then, you know, we've been out there, and we continue to sign a permit, you know, especially being that we're going to be lighting a fire, and that's something that you can't do in a national monument. But being that this is very traditional, they, you know, they allow us that time during this year to harvest, to camp out there, to burn a fire and cook the syrup traditionally how we always have. So yeah, with the tribe, you know, the tribal officials, the chairman, you know, the officials at the monument, at the park, you know, they've made this bridge so that we can kind of continue to do that.
And I know that, you know, the both the park and the Desert Museum and, you know, the groups that I had organized in the past, you know, there was a sort of a revolving season of groups that would come and learn. And can you talk a little bit about how that's going to be different this year because of the pandemic, that you won't be able to see that many folks out there?
Yeah, no, I know it's going to be a really different change out there. Of course, the permit this year included, you know, a cap of 10 people, which is hard because even with us as a family, that's, you know, we're larger than 10 people. So, you know, these groups that come out there, sometimes it's 30 plus, and, you know, with the instructors with us, you know, we can easily have 40, sometimes 50 people out there. So that's definitely going to change this year. I think a lot of people, of course, are moving on to video presentations. So I have one group coming out, which that's Tucson Indian Center, and they've chosen, they said, we're going to do a, you know, food preparation out there, and it's just going to be us, you know, me and a couple coworkers. And I said, no, that's good. So at least we now have the technology on hand that we can still reach many people. And, you know, who knows, I think it's almost to the point, even though it's not hands-on, you're still going to reach maybe even way more people than we were able to before, because, you know, some people weren't able to find transportation to get onto, you know, get to those locations where they were brought out to us. So now they can actually watch it on the web with these video presentations. So yeah, it's going to definitely change that. It's going to be very quiet out there with just us hanging out, but it'll be nice. At least for this year, we'll get a lot of repairs done that needed to be done. And yeah, and just hopefully get on to, getting on video and reaching a lot more people this way. And hopefully by next year, we'll have even a larger gathering, because, once they see this on video, they'll be interested, and they'll definitely want to come out and see us next year.
And I do want to mention that while some in the past people have donated to the camp and donated their time and skill and interest, this year people can donate money in part to help you all with the repairs and upgrade. So we will put a link in the chat box about how to donate to that camp and help keep it going.
Yes, definitely. And I think everybody who has, of course, Borderlands Southwest, they gave us, good amounts of money to keep us going, and that helps buy supplies, and helps us just even with our time, which, we love doing this, but to feed, I like to feed everybody, make sure everybody has food. And then also, getting the supplies, which are jars, which, to get the fruit and the syrup out to, the elders who are, not able to pick anymore. So, it's nice. And then so I can also keep them at a very, a good rate for purchasing the syrup. And some people just come and pick their own fruit and, ask me to cook it, and I will do that for them. So yeah, this is definitely help for that. And, for the money needed to provide porta-john, because we do have to have that out there now while we're camping, also with, a lot of driving and stuff like that. So I definitely appreciate it. It's very helpful.
And it seems, it might be the nature of your family, or the nature of the harvest, or the nature of the saguaro itself, or where the camp is located, but there's just always been a sense of generosity from your great aunt and your mother and you, in terms of inviting folks to be a part of this tradition, which is such a gift. And you mentioned, as we were preparing for this interview, that someone who had been coming to the camp for many years had brought you an old photograph.
Yeah. So that gentleman, and I found his card, his name was James. And I had an article last year that appeared in the newspaper. So I was on the front page. I didn't think I was going to be on the front page, but it was titled that I'm still keeping that tradition alive. And it hit in the morning, and I swear by the afternoon he showed up out there, and he came out and he brought an ice chest, and he had ice in there, and he had water with him. And he said, I used to come out here and bring your grandma Juana ice and water. And he's like, and I came out here and brought your mom ice and water. And he said, now I'm coming out here to bring you ice and water. And he was like, he got this very nice picture. I was so teary. He got this picture, and he took this picture of my grandma Juana, and he said, and this is set on my wall for 30 years. And he's like, and I want to give you this picture. And I'll show you this picture of her harvesting with her, getting ready to cook. And of course, with her bandana on her head. That's just as I remember her. And he said, I want you to have this picture now. So I thought that was so beautiful.
So beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, people just come out, they remember us, they're there, they've came all these years. And, even Jesus, who, is from the Desert Museum, he was out there. He used to come and sing to my grandma Juana, serenade her at night. And, he also said, I used to come out here when it was, Juanita's camp. And I came out here when it was Stella's camp. And now I'm coming out here and it's Tanisha's camp. So it's like that tradition, that lineage, it's wonderful. And I'm just so thankful to have the support and the community and everybody. And they come out and, they always bring us stuff, and they always, watch out for us and, make sure that we're with water and ice. And it's very sweet. It's just this community that's still, it's a giving area. So I love keeping that tradition going.
Beautiful. There's a question from one of our attendees that I will read. In general, are the younger generations on the nation invested in the preservation of your culture and of celebrations like the saguaro harvest? Do you see an increase in interest or a steady interest in the harvest from non-Tohono O'odham Tucson locals? So the question is both Tohono O'odham youth and non-Tohono O'odham people.
Yeah, it was something me and my sister always talked about. Me and my sister, my mom, even Maria, like, we want to make sure we're reaching the youth. We want to make sure that they are knowing about this, that we're still here. So last year it was just these beautiful groups of all the youth groups came out. And I will say there is definitely an increase in the youth, and they're coming back to this. And they remember, and not only do they remember, their parents start to remember, and they remember going out with their grandparents. And they may have not done it in years, but they come out and they're like, I want to continue to pick again. So I think it was very good to see, even though, my mom did put, she publicized this a lot. She, made it almost a little bit more popular. And, there was a increase of non-natives coming out for a while, but it brought the popularity back. And not only that, we have the organizations that go for harvesting what's in your backyard, harvesting what's around you, sustainable, living and things like that bring about all these different groups. But, definitely the youth is picking up. So I'm very happy to say that it's going strong within the tribe. It will continue to go. And I have no doubt that, when I become an older lady and I'm out there and I can't harvest, I'll have all the kids out there and they'll be picking.
It's beautiful. I remember speaking to a Tohono O'odham in the Phoenix area who had been disconnected from the harvest and from the practice. And he told me that he had found the Desert Museum classes, and that for a while was going to those, which your mom had also helped with, but he also was, learning from non-O'odham people. And he said that felt so strange, and that he was so happy to finally find your mom's camp so that he could connect back with his own tradition. It was such a beautiful story.
Yeah. And I like that, we open up, those classes are open to the public. So, we do find people who they slowly make their way back to that camp, back to, the culture and back to their roots. And even if that's the way they have to go, they go through that way. But, luckily with a lot of the co-op organizations like TOCA, and us just kind of, saying, hey, we're here, contact us, and with now the internet, you're able to hop on and get in connection with us. So I think that's wonderful. But yes, and he still comes out every year, that gentleman.
That's great.
Yeah. Great. So it's good. And he's happy to be there because that creates that bridge. So he can now go back and teach, those up there, which they're still our sister tribe, the Acamel O'odham, the Pimas, how to harvest. They've lost a lot of their saguaros, of course, because of all the development in the Phoenix area. But if they're lucky enough to find an area, they get their areas, they at least know through Gary and through everybody else who showed up with Gary, or I'm going to say his name, Gary, but to help create that, bring on that tribe, bring on that tradition again, and help them continue on with it. So it kind of started that fire up there. So it's good.
So I want to invite anybody who's listening to either raise your hand and we can hear your question, or you can type it into the Q&A, either way. So someone's asking, where can you purchase what you produce? Jams, juices, etc.
Oh, that's a hard one. We don't really sell, this is not a commercialized product. It's more about getting out there and harvesting with us. I know Sometimes Toka will have some products available, because it's so labor intensive, because your yield is so small. A lot of times it takes a lot of people to pick what we have, what we gather, and it gets dispersed to the people who've helped, the family that's helped. And also, like I said, I try and make this available to a lot of the elders who are not able to harvest anymore. And they come and pick up, some of them come from the villages and buy quite a large amount of syrup and take it back so they can distribute it out to those villages too, if they don't have anyone who's harvesting. So it's kind of difficult to say where to buy it. And like I said, I don't sell it that often, except for those instances to the tribal members. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'll ever get to that point where I do sell in, off the internet or anything like that. Most likely not. So it's kind of a very rare product. But yeah, you can maybe contact me. Maybe I can, you can arrange to have a day where you come out and learn some stuff and harvest with us, and then you can take a little bit of a jar home. And then also it's nice to show people, because a lot of people have saguaros on their properties, and they're not aware that you can eat the fruit and cook it.
Yeah, so that's a really important point, in that any saguaros on public lands are protected.
Mm-hmm.
So Tanisha and her family and the Autumn have that relationship, but for the rest of us, we can support that tradition. And if we've got saguaro in our backyard or on private land, you can ask permission and taste the fruit. But it's not really a thing about everybody gathering saguaro fruit for their own personal strawberry patch. It's really about upholding this tradition.
Yeah.
There's another question here. What can non-natives do to best support the uplifting and amplification of the nation and its culture and voice in the community? It's a big question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say having that open mind about, how traditions are held, and of course how cultures, how certain tribes operate. It's also understanding that there is a process, there is a cycle that we follow, and it's just being in that cycle. It lets you, it gives you that respect that that this, at any time something could happen. Nature could decide, I don't want you guys doing this, or I'm not going to bring on the rain, and things will dry up and they may not be as prosperous as the following year. But helping with the youth groups are definitely important. I feel like, because they are our future. Helping support them, and also maybe giving that guidance for them. Sometimes they do need assistance out there on the tribe. But that, I think that is where that all lies. But yeah, definitely just having that respect for it, and also knowing that tradition is here for us, but it's not for sale, so to speak. Things can't be processed without the process that is known with it. It comes with certain territories, it comes with certain understandings about these saguaros, because I think that's what happens a lot of times, is it's lost. And then the plants they lose that respect that they once had when we do worship them, when we do celebrate them. So it starts with those saguaros. Celebrate them, respect them. They've been here a long time.
Beautiful. I love that. Tradition is not for sale. That's beautiful. So someone's asking, if we want to do a group online session with you, how do we contact you? And are there any advanced preparations to be aware of?
For like a video, you said?
Yeah, for a video learning session.
Okay. Yeah, we can, we eventually would like to set something up. I think with, I'm not sure through Tucson Indian Center, if they're doing this broadcast, how they're broadcasting it, if it's going to be on their Facebook page. But, you can also get in contact with them. This is something like they do focus on. They come through and, do these classes. Also another one is the Sanavir Co-op and Toka. They also do a lot of classes that, you know, you can see them online. Eventually, you know, I'd like to get with my sister, and then we can do some kind of Zoom meeting or webinar where we can have multiple people out, and or multiple people teaching multiple people through the internet. So maybe hopefully we can get something started through that. But
And Tanisha, do you have a, I know there's the GoFundMe that we posted that link. Is there contact information for you that's public?
I can do, what I'll do is I'll do the, my email, which I can give out publicly. That's through the Harvest email. And I think you have the harvestbahidaj.com. And yeah, people can reach me through there. And that can, you know, then I can at least get contact information for others who are interested. And then eventually we can start some type of videos, and also just maybe how-tos, and you know, give a bit of understanding history, which we're doing now, of the tradition, and also the process of picking fruit, of harvesting fruit.
And can you just say that Gmail address now?
Yes, it's harvest bahidaj, which is B-A-H. Hold on, I gotta get that. It is, so harvest, Harvest, bahidaj, BAHIDAJ @gmail.com.
Great, thank you so much. So those are some places where we've also put a couple of those organizations that she mentioned into the chat box. So there's another question here. Do you have a partnership with the Tohono O'odham Community College to teach harvesting to students?
You know, not somewhat with the college, because who I work with is also with the college and U of A, and that's Ophelia Zapata. So she will usually bring out a class or a group. Some native, some not native O'odham, but native from other areas of the U.S., and also non-natives. So yeah, she usually will come out every year and bring a group. So yeah, we do have that connection also with the college, and even with U of A.
Great. So keep your questions coming, people. I wanted to ask you, Tanisha, I know that you in your, oh, we've got someone raising their hand. Let's see, how do we do this? Someone wants to ask. So Kate, can you help me? Here, I'll just unmute you. There we go. We've got a question from Stacy.
Oh, Stacy!
Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm on my laptop. It's a little janky. But anyway, I just wanted to say Tanisha's been doing a really good job, and she's right. Like, we talked like maybe 5 or 6 years ago about like really reaching out to the young kids, and she's really upholding that, and she's been doing a lot of efforts and making the big steps to make sure more young people are coming out, because she's right, that is the way that we continue the tradition. My mom built a huge foundation for us to kind of spring off of, and it is all about relationships. And I think when she talked about tribes, like how we feel about like the relationship with the plants or the saguaro, it is family, and that is the connection. And the way you support it is by kind of just supporting and upholding those family connections that people have within the tribe, and our relationship to the land, and the respect for nature. And she's right, it's a cycle. It's all about kind of being out there and understanding about when the plants don't need you to take more from them. And I think as we've seen with this kind of 2020, it's kind of telling us a lot about nature. Speaks to us about how we should relate to it and how we should slow down. And so that's how kind of we followed, and we both picked that up from our mother. So she's taught us a lot. So thank you. I love you, Teddy.
I love you, sissy.
Bye. Okay. Now
So
you can mute me.
That's right.
that was Tanisha's sister, Stacy. So.
Yeah. She joined, but that's exactly it. That's it in a nutshell. Yes, having that respect, having that connection, and and it shouldn't be just tribal. It should be us as a human race. We should know that we share everything with this planet. We can't just take and not give also. So that's one thing that my mom was very clear at just putting in us is that you want to give back, you don't want to take more than you need. So yeah. Oh, I'm so glad she joined us.
So Tanisha, in your other life, I know that you're involved in the healing arts. And I guess I just wanted to ask a little bit about that, and especially because we're in this moment of sickness globally, and we're thinking about resilience and adaptability. And I just wonder if you might talk a little bit about healing. And I think Stacy just alluded to that, but that these relationships are about health and healing and respect. And how does that intersect with your other work?
Well, it does, because it's like again, it is a cycle too, in that sense, because with healing, it all starts with my wellness, my well-being and my grounding and my centering too, so that I can pass that on to the people who I work with. Some of them are, we're all in a very panicky state where, it's the unknown. People are unsure, people are in fear, and it's almost that it's keeping that understanding that, we are taking care of, everything will be okay, and it's bringing that within myself so that I can bring that to my workspace, to my camp space. It's that, Mother Earth will take care of us, and if it's whatever it may be, if it is at that point where we do come to our end, which we will, as humans, the body only is a vessel, we're on this cycle and we will continue on, so it's that understanding that, even though I see things, die out in the desert, the beautiful saguaros that I once had that were standing there, the mesquite tree that was there, something happened to it, it got sick, it died, it's no longer there, it fell over, but we use the ribs, we take and we reuse the vessel that it was, and its spirit will be carried on. Some bird probably picked its seeds up and took it, and it's replanting and it's growing again. So I think it's just remembering that there is this cycle, and that even though we're in this this pandemic, people are going crazy for supplies and food, and we have to remember these things weren't around a long time ago. We did fine without them. And the desert out there, the saguaros are blooming, there's fruit, there's all nature is still going. It's like we're still continuing on, and if we lose that connection with our grocery stores, we still have our connection with the earth, and we still have food, plenty of food out there. Because once upon a time, the desert and all our areas, our lands, our forests, that was our grocery store, that was our pharmacy. So, we have to remember those plants are there for us, and they've always been there.
Beautiful, thank you. We have another question, and it's from our friend Jesus Garcia. Jesus, do you want to ask the question yourself? I can unmute you. Are you willing to ask it?
Be online with us, Jesus.
Jesus, can you ask? Can maybe he's not.
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Hi, Jesus.
Okay. Hi, Tanisha.
Hi.
Thank you for doing this. Well, my question is, which is another, I missed the beginning of the program, but my question is, are you going to be celebrating the Dia de San Juan as your mom and probably your grandma did?
We are, minus the big gathering. I'd like to, it's almost like we're going to have to do these drive-by graduations. I'm going to have to schedule people to come in at certain hours.
Okay.
So I do want to have it like, I was telling Kimi this permit that, the permit this year did say, and I think they know because we have such large gatherings out there. They're like, we don't want large gatherings. You have to be very careful, no more than 10. And of course, I'd love to, of course, I plan on celebrating and having as many people out as I can, but definitely.
Okay, so we'll make sure that we bring some music, if hopefully for that morning.
Yeah, yeah. And
can
it
you
may
just
just
tell
be
us what
us.
that? Yeah, can you tell us what that? Just explain for listeners what the Dia de San Juan celebrates and when it is.
It is the 24th. Yes. Hey, are you asking me or Jesus?
Both, either of you, just to.
Well, the Dia de San Juan celebrates anybody who's named Juan, which is for male, or Juana for female. So obviously Juanita would have been her either birthday or decimos Dia de su Santo. I don't know if that was actually her birthday. It could have been if it was the 24th. Or could have been just what we call the Saint Day, El Dia de su Santo. So, and she obviously celebrated Dia de San Juan. It's a very popular day because it's often, particularly south of the border, and maybe at one point here in the Tucson area, it used to mark the beginning of the rains. In a way, the Dia de San Juan is associated with the beginning of the monsoons farther south. The farther south you go into Mexico, the earlier the monsoon appears. So it's often a connotation that is the beginning of the rains. So, and since I learned that Stella would have a mass and celebration and breakfast celebrating that, it was always kind of a nice. It's also just again the beginning and the heart of the saguaro harvest. It's really cool. So
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that
For
might
those
have
of
to
you-
happen at. Everyone might have to be celebrating at home, but sending out the good wishes.
Yeah.
For those of you who are more Anglo-Catholic, Dia de San Juan is the day of Saint John the Baptist.
John the Baptist, yes.
That's Kate chiming in. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesus, for that.
Oh, yes,
Great.
thanks, Jesus. I'll be out there celebrating.
So let's see. I think there might be one more question. Nope, we got that one. So this question I think I've asked you before, but since the Western knowledge always wants to try to figure out something about a plant, I learned from reading the botanist Robin Wall Kimmerer, who's also Potawatomi, that we can learn from the plant instead of just about the plant. So what lessons have you learned from the saguaro, and what might we all learn from the beautiful plants?
I feel like it's patience. I feel patience is one thing that I've learned from the saguaros, and also just in the desert and being near not only the saguaros but the other plants. Also, another is resilience, is because they are so strong. You think of the high temperatures and the sun, it can be so brutal out there during the days and, during this time of the year, but, they're still out there and they're standing and they keep going on. And I think those are the two things that I feel like I've learned from them, and also, you can't rush the seasons. They're ready when they're ready, and and that's somewhat how I have to look at it too. I can't be rushed. I'm ready when I'm ready. So I take that from them.
Thank you so much, Tanisha.
Yeah, you're welcome, Kimi.
Thank you. This has been a really wonderful spending time with you, and thanks to everybody else for tuning in, and we invite you to our future programs. We invite you to support the bahidaj camp to help keep it going. This beautiful tradition that brings our rain every year, and helps educate us about the plants and the entire desert, really.
Yes.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Yes.
Have a beautiful day, everybody.